Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Aiken Municipal Development Commission February 2nd meeting. Sarah had mailed out, along with the Zoom link, today's agenda. The first item, obviously, is approval of the agenda. The second item is approval of minutes for December 8th and 15th. The third item is we're going to discuss the AECOM report again. The fourth item, which will probably take most of our time, is discussing strategic planning information, the document that was sent to you guys individually last week, information that we'll want to send to City Council, hopefully, if it's ratified today. And then we'll have some comments, and then we'll go into executive session to discuss a previous contract. Do we have approval of the agenda, today's agenda?
Move for approval.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. And we've got minutes for both the last two meetings, so I'm going to take those separately. If I could get a motion to approve the minutes for the December 8th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. And likewise for the 15th, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate everybody hanging with us to go through the administration there. The third item.
Keith, for the purposes of the minutes, we weren't able to track that and Sarah couldn't hear it. Can you repeat who made the motion and the second on each of those?
Well, I know David made the motion on the first, and I think Doug seconded it for the 8th. The 15th, was it Marty that made the motion?
I think it's the opposite. Yeah. I think I did the 8th, and I think I motioned the 8th.
I made the motion on the agenda.
Okay, well let's go back and run through that again. Who made the motion on the 8th? Marty?
I did. Yep.
All right. Who seconded?
I seconded.
Okay, so that's Marty and Doug. 15th, who made the motion?
I made the motion.
So more than one.
So Philip made the motion, and David, did you second it?
No, I think Marty did.
I did second that one, correct.
Got it, Tim?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sorry, I should have written that down. Sorry about that. Okay, the third item on the agenda is to hopefully everybody will agree that we would like to accept the draft of the AECOM master plan report that was submitted in December. And then we'd like to forward that to Aiken Council with a recommendation that Council approve the plan as the city's redevelopment plan is required by code. I don't think this is going to require much discussion, but nonetheless, is everybody in agreement with that? Is there any discussion? Anybody disagree with that? All right, doesn't sound like it. Do we have a motion to approve sending this to council?
So moved.
Doug made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the same.
Marty seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? There you go, Tim. You've got approval.
Thank you.
We'll discuss that a little bit more in detail as we go through the document that was sent to you. And I need to apologize to everybody. I think I sent you individually last Thursday a draft that still had some comments. That's good for you to see that. That enabled you to see some of the discussion back and forth between David, Chris, and myself, and Tim and Tom. If we could, for the purposes of this discussion, I'd like for Tom, if it's okay, for you to kind of give us a summary of what's in the document. And it looks like Tim and his staff were kind enough to put that on the screen here. So, Tom, I know that I haven't asked you to do this. If you can't, I will. But would you kind of take just a few minutes and walk us through what's in the document here?
Yeah, as I recall, the last time we talked about this before Christmas, what we agreed was that the commission wanted to develop some separate goals related to economic development for the city. We wanted to use this AECOM report as a foundation for that. We wanted to get that part out of there, out and present it to City Council to seek their approval, and that we would come back and look at how we might plan specific actions to accomplish those broad goals. So in the course of creating this document, the executive committee assigned this task, agreed upon 4 primary goals that you see there. One is the Aiken Innovation District and Innovation and Impact District. One is related to the findings of the Whiskey Road Corridor Report. A second is one that is pulled, a third is pulled largely from the AECOM report on targeting potential areas for redevelopment, and also from that was making Aiken more business friendly. There were also 2 recommendations that were talked about very broadly but are subject to approval today. One was that this commission would recommend to City Council that they undertake to find a project manager who would oversee the progress on this report, the priorities raised in this report, not just those associated with the commission, but all of the items deemed worthy of pursuit by City Council, no matter who the champions might be. And the second recommendation related to a priority that was not necessarily found in the AECOM report, but deals with a specific plan to market Aiken as an economic development opportunity to prospective investors out there. So that basically is the first page of this document. And what follows are each of those goals augmented by specific references to the AECOM report related to that particular topic, just pretty much to show that this was something that was highlighted in that report that was developed by outside experts looking at our community and what might make a difference. So it wasn't as if those goals were created out of thin air and didn't have some background to them. And we've tried to provide even the page citation so you could go to the AECOM report and see what that is in context in the report.
Hey, Tom.
So that, yes.
If I may add, while we use the AECOM report as a reference, there are certain areas in there that we did tweak the language. It's not word for word. So we added language in some areas. We may have taken some things out. So it's not word for word. It's not exactly as the AECOM report is written. In certain areas, we enhanced it.
Carol, that's true observation. We didn't leave out anything. We, if anything, added or made the statement clearer.
So everyone should have had an opportunity to read the report, read what we sent last Thursday. This is a cleaned up version. Are there any questions, discussions regarding the goals and the recommendations? Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, just Well, it's just coming out of the report, so we're trying to highlight, prioritize these goals is the way I interpret this, which I think is great. The Whiskey Road corridor, just my general question there is, obviously we're looking at, hoping to capture a good bit of funding coming from that $525 million settlement. Is that the only plan for that as far as monetizing it, or do we have a additional sources of funding there that have been looked into prior to this money that hopefully is going to drop into Aiken County, remaining to be seen?
From an AMDC standpoint, we're going to cover that in just a moment. On the back page of what was sent to you, we're going to be making a request that we're not only going to send these goals and make these recommendations, we're going to request funding from the city. So we'll highlight that in just a moment, Marty.
Okay.
And to speak specific,
I don't think that was his question.
Right. And to speak specifically to that question, this is Tim. There's a capital stack of funding from the county and from the city. Some of it's in place. Some of it is future funding that will be sought through the Department of Transportation and even federal grants. But to break this down in our planning, this was more of an advocacy role. The Municipal Development Commission will likely, unless we're wildly successful, will not be paying for road projects, but we will be applying for pressure on that. So we kind of divided our plan into activities that we will specifically do and pay for. This would be in the category of things that we will push very hard to see that it is done.
I'd like to speak to this, if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, David.
And there was an article in a front page story in Sunday's Aiken Standard that talked about the fact that this project has to start with solving some drainage issues first. And so that would be the starting point, Marty. And then I think the reason we want to keep our eye on this and we'd like to advocate for it to be completed as quickly as possible, the entire plan, because it opens up hundreds and hundreds of acres of land that would be available for development and developed in a variety of ways.
Any other questions, or does that answer your question, Marty?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's good to know there's more than one funding source, and it does. And it's just something that's been on the table a long time. So, yeah. Sure, we got.
The city and the county right now together have $17 million set aside for this. Isn't that right, Tim?
Yeah, thereabouts. Of course, the total project is many multiples of that amount.
The other point I wanted to highlight, we referenced the AECOM report several times in putting these goals, objectives, and recommendations together. But goal number 4 is not specifically right out of the AECOM report. There are bits and pieces that are referenced, but that's a goal that we pretty much wanted to add to, and it encompasses making sure that the city of Aiken is business friendly, and it covers zoning and ordinance issues, tackling some issues there, as well as the marketing aspect of trying to market Aiken from an economic development standpoint. So that's an addendum that we felt strongly needed to be added to this list for us.
And I'll just additionally comment. I was glad to see that, and reading the notes on the side and where it's added here. But just in talking to people in the past 2 or 3 weeks about things we need to do, I mean, I had some notes from people, that almost verbatim follows this goal number 4. So, I mean, there are citizens and developers and people like that who very much agree with our goal number 4 here. So I think it's a very good addition. But the zoning and business ordinances and getting them coordinated and working together was something I heard from multiple people. So kudos for y'all recognizing that. I think it's great it's added.
And Keith, you know how you can read a document 100 times and then you lay your eyes down on it and you see a typo?
Place. P-A-C-E. Yeah.
Last sentence of statement 4 is missing an L in the place.
Got it. Good catch.
It was a test.
I caught it.
And another, just along those lines, I'm not saying we need to add it, but another word that came up in this same area in ordinance and zoning, all, but certainty was a word I heard from people too, that by getting rid of some confusion and people understanding when they go to develop or use a piece of property that there is at least some degree of certainty of what they can do with it. So again, this all tends to be going in that direction, which I think is great.
I've got some specific recommendations. I'd like to hear what would have been brought to your attention, Marty, but I've got some specific recommendations for those things that are long overdue. I've been talking about them for some years, but I think we ought to have a work session to discuss a lot of this stuff.
So Philip, I agree with that. Is there anything though that's missing in our language that would not enable us to tackle some of those initiatives? Is there anything we need to add?
No. Okay. I wasn't going to comment on the wording in this document because I think it's general enough to do what it's meant to do.
Okay. Any other comments, concerns, questions? Because I'd like to move to the funding topic and discuss that, and then we can circle back around and try to wrap this up for ratification. All right, hearing none. Tim, can you go to the last page? It should have the numbers that we want to request for City Council. Okay, so with this document, our goals, objectives, recommendations, couple that with the AECOM report, we suggest that there basically be a $500,000 commitment from the city to help fund this, with $75,000 being allocated to a project manager. That project manager would be an independent contractor. That $75,000 would cover all expenses. That would not just be salary. That would include everything. And then a site acquisition pool of $250,000, options for purchase of property. The $50,000 would be for marketing, website enhancement, revampment, whatever. Workforce development, business incubator, another $50,000. And then professional services with appraisal, engineering, legal, conceptual plans, marketing, research, feasibility research, $75,000. So we're suggesting with this document for us to be successful that we're going to ask for $500,000. Discussion.
All these numbers, look logical to me. I guess my only question is the workforce development business incubator at 50,000. How would we come up with that number, and what would be like a phase one of those monies? My mind's not quite following how that originates or how that be used.
Well, the 50K would be applied to what we're trying to initiate in support of what's going to take place at USC Aiken with Dreamport, with AMDC. I think that would be a combination of working with the institution and partners to attract business into an incubator. It could be acquiring space for an incubator. I wouldn't say it's a placeholder. It's bigger than a placeholder, but that's the basis for the number.
And I would throw just a comment on top. I think it's self-evident, but these numbers are not adequate in and of themselves. This request is meant to be a continuing request to be ongoing from here forward. Because, for instance, $75,000 for soft cost professional services and things, that doesn't go very far at all. That wouldn't make it through one project.
This was intended as at least an annual appropriation.
Right. I'm just saying it for the record.
Yeah, and it's in addition.
So I guess
it's in addition to the
Go ahead.
planned settlement monies that have been requested too that would flow through the city. So this is in addition to and recurring.
And Marty, it's my opinion that this term business incubator might have a new meaning. It might look differently than anything we've ever seen as we try to move to an innovation economy. It might not be what you normally visualize.
For instance, some business incubator programs around the country at this point are concentrating on really smart intellectual workers who actually work from their home, and you actually help them to set up their business locally. So you wouldn't build a brick and mortars building that people can all go share space in. It's a little bit different.
Chris, I'm sorry I cut you off earlier. Chris Breen?
No, I think David and what y'all said. You know, it's an annual approach. You know, it's probably seed money, I'm guessing, and it will probably evolve. But it's getting our foot in the door with that concept is what I was assuming, and I think y'all all kind of touched on that.
And fellow commissioners, I will tell you there was some debate on the $75,000 number for the project manager. And I know personally, I feel that while that may look like a high number, if that project manager is successful and we're able to implement most, if not all, what's in that AECOM report, that return on their investment is pretty good.
And remember, for those who weren't involved in our discussions specifically on that position, this person would not be just managing the city's activities or the commission's activities. The plan calls for our activities by our higher education institutions, the Aiken Corporation, ADDA, the Chamber of Commerce, Aiken County Public Schools, all kinds of organizations. This was kind of an umbrella position for somebody to be a true leader across the board, to be able to go speak to all of those organizations and kind of lead the effort.
Y'all foresee that as a true individual? I understand it's not going to be a city employee, or do you see it more as retaining the services, you know, of a single person from an existing management type, project management, larger company, or is that to be determined? Because the money's kind of, you know, if I'm looking at an independent person, skilled person versus a project manager coming out of an existing project manager type company, you know, I think that makes the numbers maybe different. How are y'all kind of foreseeing that?
Marty, I'd like
to. Let me start by asking just a question. I'm wondering if to me, I think that the title is to manage these plans in a successful way, as opposed to the traditional what you would get in construction or engineering, a project manager. That would be me, but is Marty looking at it strictly from what a real project manager in a construction site or a building site does? And I'm looking at it as somebody who keeps these projects on task and pushes and goads and does stuff similar to a project manager.
Yeah, but I think my question is more specifically like, and again, I don't think this is a construction project manager. It's going to be slightly more on the development side. But, you know, I mean, if I might do one project for you or two projects for you and assign a project manager to that as part of my company versus, you know, you hire somebody away from somebody or somebody who's independent. You're just hiring an independent project manager to take, you know, one specific job as an individual to do what, you know, whatever his job description is. I mean,
I think
more of a question, is it an individual or it's going to be getting a project manager from an existing corporation?
Yeah, the group envisioned an individual.
An individual, yeah.
That's the only way to do it. I mean, you need somebody who can comprehensively coordinate all these things.
Yeah. This person's got to be a diplomat and have a cattle prod at the same time.
Yeah, and I don't want us to get hung up on that number. It's more than a placeholder, but we may find exactly what David just described as a retiree that's willing to do this for a lower number. So, but we didn't feel like we needed to put a lower number in there and constrain ourselves, because this person is going to be critical for implementation of everything that needs to be done. Questions, concerns?
When we put this request forward, the $500,000, I mean, and maybe that'll be up to the city council or the city to tell us this or to set the rules. But I mean, let's say we spend 200 on site acquisition instead of 250 in the first year. Are we allowed to move some of that money around to another area? I mean, can we?
Have to. You have to.
It's okay. I mean, this is a budget for $500,000, but we can reallocate within reason.
Generally, Marty, the way that works is if we get an approved budget, we can do some moving within lines, but I mean, you can't wholesale spend the whole 500 on tongue depressors, but you could move a little bit from one place to another.
I like that. Thank you.
And when this project manager comes in, he may make some suggestions on what are the different priorities or what we need to do to make some adjustments too. So I agree with everybody. I think we need to be flexible. As long as we don't exceed the 500K, we should have some autonomy and be agile and being able to move those monies around.
And I just want to preemptively comment that while saying 500,000 sounds like a lot of money, it's really doesn't go as far as you think. As I pointed out a minute ago, soft costs on any kind of economic development project are going to blow $75,000 in a minute. $50,000 for the marketing promotion piece, economic development marketing, I think we're calling it. That doesn't go very far. All these numbers I think are not unreasonable. I think they're good numbers, but 500,000, while it might sound at first blush, it might sound like a giant number. It's really not when you start breaking it down into all its components. And once you do that, you recognize how reasonable it might actually be.
And I think our argument right now would be that it is far more than zero.
Good point.
Last I checked, yes.
Although we do have more than zero. I think we got 10, right?
That and $1.40 will get you a cup of coffee.
Right.
Do we want, Mr. Chairman, do we want to consider a motion on this now? Is that something we want to circle back to? I don't know how much more discussion we need, but
I think that's a good idea. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I would like to make the motion that we do ask for the $500,000 per this breakdown of budgetary request for 2021 for the AMDC. And yes, that's my motion.
Do we have a second?
Well, is this a motion to pass along the entire document or just the 500,000?
My motion was just for the monies.
Okay. I'd second it.
Well, for some discussion here, do we want to have the motion all as one to ratify the document and with the document, the supporting budget to go along with it as a request?
That would be best.
Have we finished all the discussion on the document? I just didn't know if everybody had their say.
Yeah, that was my confusion, Keith. I didn't know we were going to come back to that or.
Okay, is there any further discussion? If not, then perhaps we can amend the motion. Philip, you said something there.
I said I don't have anything. No further comment.
So Marty, would you be willing to amend the motion?
Yes, I would be willing to amend the motion. just when I amend, I want to make sure I'm clear as what the new motion would be for the strategic goals that we're extracting to go along with this budget. So I mean, this we've already made a motion to take the whole ACON plan to them. So the second motion would be for our strategic goals plus the budgetary monies. That is correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I would like to make that motion revised to include, yes, the $500,000 monies as we're requesting and broken down, and our strategic goals that's laid out here as we were discussing earlier. So include all that in one motion is my motion.
Okay. With the amended motion, do we have a second?
Didn't somebody already second it?
I didn't know we seconded the amended motion.
Okay, I'll second it.
Philip.
Okay. All right. So Marty made the motion. Philip has seconded the motion. You need discussion before we vote? Hearing no further discussion, everyone in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No one's opposed. Great. Well, Tim, what we'll do, we've got ratification from the commission on the document. Perhaps we can put a formal letter together tomorrow and send that to the mayor with a copy to all city council members as well as the city manager. A cover letter. Before we close this topic out, I want to thank Tom Hallman. Tom did yeoman's work here, a lot of hard work. I think David Jameson said it best the other day. Perhaps he didn't have the best client in the world, but he was patient enough to work with us. And Tom, want to say thank you because you really pushed us across the goal line.
Well, my pleasure.
Okay. The city's strategic planning session was supposed to be last Friday. It has been delayed. Tim, I don't know if we have a new date for that.
We do not. I think it will become clearer by the end of next week.
I don't know what the group thinks. I think we don't wait on city council reaction to our document. I think at our next meeting, we take some time and start maybe deciding what are our priorities as far as tackling these goals and objectives and who needs to be on what. So if you guys are okay with that, we'll add that to the agenda for the next meeting. Okay.
So we're talking 2 weeks from now?
Correct.
Keith, if I could interject, as we went through that survey originally on the AECOM report, you all had the opportunity to sort of insert yourselves at given places in that document, and we did capture that, but we've now sort of rearranged the focus, and so if between now and the next meeting you could sort of look at these 4 goals and say where you would like to be engaged, maybe an A and a B preference, and let the chairman know that, then as we think through how we might begin and implement this action planning stage, that would give us an idea of where some leadership might come in each of these areas.
Good suggestion, Tom. I was thinking maybe we would go back through the survey, but it would be much easier if everyone would just go back to the document, goals and objectives, and say, hey, I'm interested in goal 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 2 and 4, whatever that may be.
And it may be that, like our advocacy for Whiskey Road funding and completion, that just may have to be tackled by a committee as a whole, with our chairman, commission chairman being the chief spokesman for that. I mean, we might make some of those kind of decisions.
Sure.
Good point. Okay, any other discussion? We're going to move to topic number 5, which is comments by commission members. If there's anything else we need to discuss? Any other comments, guys?
No, I think we're making good progress. We're headed in the right direction, and we've got a group dedicated to Aiken's future.
So I do have a comment I'd like to add. Actually, it's two. For a future meeting, I think we need to get an update from the city manager with respect to the plutonium settlement funds, what feedback we're getting out of Columbia from our delegation and others. So that request will be made of Stewart and or the mayor. And then we also have a request outstanding for an update on one of the projects here in the city. So hopefully we can get that added to a future agenda. Updates from the staff. Tim, Sarah, anything you want to add before we go into executive session?
Well, and I don't know, Ms. Sarah, did you send out the schedule of meetings for the year? I did. Okay. If everyone, you know, between now and the next meeting, if you could review that schedule, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. We've just spent a lot of time setting goals. So attendance or attention to our meeting schedule will be very important. Try to look through that schedule of meeting dates and see if you see any issues early on so we can rearrange or change things as we need. If you could do that for all of us, that would be appreciated. And I think
Tim,
everything, yes.
In that regard, that July 6th meeting might be a tough one, depending on when people are away for 4th of July time.
Okay. Is that and that would be the first meeting of July we will have met. What would the chairman's direction be on that? Would you like to eliminate that meeting or postpone it?
That would be my suggestion. Let's just eliminate it. Does everyone else agree with that?
I agree.
I do.
And that kind of feedback is very helpful. So we just know going into the year when we're going to meet and when we won't. So if anybody, you don't have to do it right this second while you're sitting here. But if you do come up with some concern, just let us know so we can try to plan that out ahead of time.
Good point.
Okay. And then anything else I have for you, largely I'll share my presentation with you about an ongoing project in executive session here in a few minutes.
Okay, Sarah, do you have anything?
She says no.
I should add, everyone, I did get a note from the city manager from Stewart earlier today that he was not going to make the meeting. So he asked for an excuse. So that was granted.
Keith, are we going to stay? Are we going to stay with Zoom for a while? Or are we going to try to get back in person? Or have we made that decision?
The city council has passed an ordinance that requires all of our boards and commissions to meet via Zoom until further notice.
Okay, that helped me a lot. Thank you.
And Doug, I think the feeling is with this group, we're going to do it as long as we feel like from a safety perspective, we need to.
No problem.
Okay.
That lets me know if I can meet on the road, if I need to be in town. So that's good information.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Then I need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye.
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 Bye,
Okay.
Tom.
Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.
Everybody. If you get the commissioners to hang on as well as Tim?
Hey, Keith.
Yes.
Keith. I'm just wondering in the future, and we have the same thing with our board of directors meetings, but I don't know what y'all think, is if we ought to have a separate number, a call-in